I would go back to page 47, and I think that's where I hope your questions are, because that's really what drives the conclusions. Thank you very much.
John.
Very interesting, Chopo. Thank you so much for such a clearly presented presentation.
Thank you.
Dr. Brody and Dr. Neely, do you have questions to address to Chopo on his research?
I have two questions, actually three. This is Dr. Brody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly willing to go ahead, or anybody else wants to take the floor is fine with me.
No, please go ahead.
Please.
First question, Chopo, is when you got into interacting with the participants, how did, and this is more a methodology question and curiosity driven, how did you ensure that you weren't leading the participants? In other words, that inherently you may have included some bias in your questioning.
Dr. Brody, I did struggle with that.
I'm sure.
What I tried to do, and I did it often, is that whenever somebody gave me, let's say, a positive answer about whatever, right? They say, oh, this is fantastic because, okay, now tell me, even opposing myself, could something go wrong? Can you actually argue the opposite? Right? I knew where I was. I knew what I wish they would have told me. But I often, not often, I would say every interview, had it several times, I would say, well, you're describing an extreme that is positive. Can you now describe an extreme that is negative? And kind of let them counterpoint their own ideas. So I would say that's number one. Number two, right at the end of every interview, I had the recording, so I had to listen to it. So I was listening to the interviews right after, and I would say, oops, I think I said it here a bit much, so let me not do it so much the next time. I think I was able to cancel some of my ideas that might have been more present at the beginning. And third, to answer the question, what I did is that the intro that I did once, then I did it recorded, because that way I could make sure I didn't introduce strange stuff every time in the intro. So the intro, where I explained the questions and all, was always a recording. So the amount of words that I said during the interview were very little, right? So the bias was reduced by reducing the amount of words. Instead of me saying stuff, I had nothing to say at the beginning because it was recorded, and then during the during the dialogue, I was saying, so what about the opposite? Or have you completed your idea, right? Try to keep me out of the conversation. So that's question one. You said you had two questions, or is this sufficient?
No, the second question is more of a what-if question. Let's take a look at, and what I'm looking at is application of what you're espousing here with the short video. Let's take a look at Wikipedia.
Yep.
And obviously you see where I'm going. It's mainly textual based.
Yep.
But what's your thoughts about having links to instructional videos from Wikipedia?
Well, I think there's two complications there. One is the complication inherent in Wikipedia that anybody can put whatever they want there, right? And that's why I'm talking about the ethical issues, that somebody needs to figure that out, and what kind of endorsement some knowledge is going to have. But the other thing is that, I don't know if you've seen Twitter. When you send a video to Twitter, wherever the video is, Twitter actually goes to somebody else, a third party, that provides a short URL, because the videos could have extremely long URLs. So a third party provides a short URL that can be embedded very easily in text message. So what I'm thinking is there could be a universal, like we have URLs, we might have video URLs type of thing, so they can be easily referenced. Now, problem again, I mean, I see more problems than solutions, is what if the video disappears? Wikipedia can contain and back up stuff. YouTube more or less does that. Google certainly backs up your email and other content that you put there, but backing up videos, it's massive. And ensuring that the content is reasonable. So it's a big what if. I don't have a solution. I really don't have a solution, Dr. Brody.
Yeah, I was curious because certainly Wikipedia is reviewed. Information is just not put out there. It is certainly peer reviewed. But of course, the question is who watches the watcher. It would just be curious to me because it is certainly a source that many folks use, even in the doctoral program, to go to. And so as you were talking through the idea of pointing off to another site where there is an instructional video on whatever topic might have interest. But anyhow, that was just a flagging or a fleeting question and more of a curiosity to see your views on that. But I'm fine, Chopo. I think what you did was well done.
Thank you. Sorry, let me add one thing. I think right in one of the last things, I've insisted on a system architect. And I don't know what exactly the role is, but I am sure that, let's say, Google email has a system architect, or Sun Microsystems Java has a system architect, somebody that can think ahead of the needs of the world and put out the, let's say, the software. And again, I don't have a solution. I'm just trying to complete the idea based on what is written already, that these are questions for the system architect.
I think it's also a question for standards bodies.
Yeah.
Because a system architect will follow a set of standards.
Right.
So I think what you're getting to at a higher level is to have maybe something like ISO put up a set of standards for, I'll call it, short videos, not only for their storage, retrieval, and for the storage, retrieval, and display.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I think we need to take a look at a higher level besides its system architecture. It's a more complex thing, and if there is going to be, quote, an architecture, I think it would have to come from an international standards body.
Right.
And then, as you say, then the architects within the various companies will hopefully adhere to that and make modifications appropriately.
Certainly, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brody, did you have a third question?
Nope. I think 2 does it fine.
Okay, great. Dr. Neely?
Sure, maybe just one to get to 3. Basically, I was just thumbing through, kind of an old term for technology there, but I was flipping through or scrolling through your work, and you mentioned, and I often look for like movements. What's going to come from this? Where's the so what in all of this? You referenced the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, as a great human endeavor that was pursued and was successful.
Yes.
How do you see? If you could just expound a little bit upon that, the work that you did to turn into something that could be scalable to that extent, and maybe it gets a little bit to like, well, who's working on this stuff? And to what standards? As I grapple a lot with, as I mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, all the new technology all the time that's coming out.
Yeah.
So maybe just a little bit of discussion around, like, what are the next steps in your roadmap as you see it?
I was saying I spent the weekend with my father, who's been a senior executive for decades. And he asks the question similar to this. He says, I can connect you right now with a dean of a university that he knows. And he says, what would you tell him, right? What exactly do you want them to do right now? Talk. He put me on the spot all weekend. And And I think that the layout of a large infrastructure is required. If the U.S. government Department of Education were to set aside through the National Science Foundation a good third of their budget, and I'm very ambitious here, and say this money will go to the schools that can put out their knowledge, as much as MIT is doing it on private money, but to the top 10 big schools, I don't know, Ohio, Michigan, what have you, anybody that wants to grab this money needs to put out a proposal. Perhaps, as Dr. Browdy was saying, on the ethics, standards, global agreements, but also with content. We can start laying out something like the streets underneath. Now, do I have something more specific? Probably not. But, oh, by the way, the Tennessee Valley is also infrastructure, right?
It strikes me as a question that's obviously connected to, but also similar to the discourse about the Internet and how the Internet just itself is, a proliferating, free-for-all, uncontrolled, unregulated, disorganized. And already there are thoughts about how this is going to sort of morph into a more cohesive, manageable system. And it seems to me that the short videos might be a part of that.
Yeah.
If not guided in some respect by a principle to do that.
But even
I grew up with a mother as a librarian, so I can't help but think about all of this from the standpoint of cataloging. Sorry, Chopo,
to your first point, even the Internet started with military infrastructure and relying on the need for universities to connect among themselves in the backbone, right? So for the Internet to really flourish, when I was one of those guys trying to connect to isolated servers in Silicon Valley from Mexico City when I was a consultant, and we had to establish private links through satellite. And of course, all these databases were being created because the computers were massive, the databases were growing, the knowledge was being captured. Every newspaper, every press release was now available on a server somewhere, and you had to make a connection like we make connections phone to phone. Universities figured out through email and through connection of databases how to establish the backbone of the Internet, and that became global. And then the military said, hey, I want to jump in there, and they're interested in the satellites and other reliabilities that the Internet has. So the Internet flourished on top of some other larger initiatives that maybe we forget about.
Are you sure you want to quit all applications and log out now?
But Dr. Neely, did I answer your question, or are we going to lose you for time concerns?
No, Chopo, we've been through this a lot of times. I mean, that was kind of a, 30,000-foot question. I have no problem while you don't know the decision, and I'll let your mentor kind of orchestrate, arriving at that in this call without you and then with you. But the thing is I don't have any problem with your work that we've discussed here today that needs further questions.
Thank you.
You've done a good job.
Thank you.
And we have moved a great distance from thinking about the learning within film, within short video, to the larger task of how we manage this as like an increasingly large body of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Okay, Chopo, I think that in the interest of time, so that we can respect particularly Dr. Neely's constraints, may we ask you to leave the call so that the three of us can deliberate, and then I will phone you back.
Thank you.
Chopo, will you give me the phone number where I should phone you?
860-997 8195.
All righty, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
See you, Chopo.
Bye.
See you, Chopo.